this particular training is going to be on pivot tables, which is a feature offered through Microsoft Excel. One of the things when I started working on these pivot tables with Dharma and Kathy that I noticed could be very beneficial to all school assessment coordinators is it really could help you at the beginning of the school year already begin to anticipate how many personnel you're going to need when it comes to testing time, how many test administrators you'll need, proctors, rooms, all of that. So for today's meeting, for today's training, that's really where I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on using it as an anticipatory tool to go ahead and already anticipate and get anticipatory tool to anticipate to already prepare for spring testing, because you know sometimes at the beginning of the school year it's a little bit more lax. You don't have so much to worry about. So you can go ahead and already pull these files from File Download Manager, turn it into a pivot table, and voila. Now you see already what your spring is going to look like in terms of number of students testing and all of that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. This particular file is downloaded from File Download Manager. It is a high school file. Let me take it all the way to the top. It is a high school file, but again, pivot tables can be used no matter what school level you are at. Okay, and Nadeshka, I'm also going to touch base on it with you because I know that you have different schools that you work with, like different centers that you work with. So you could definitely use the pivot tables to still get an anticipation overall how it's going to look for you. Okay, so for File Download Manager, this is everything I've gotten, all the different demographic information that I've gotten for the students. I've gotten ESOL levels, I've gotten ESC exceptionality codes, section 504, accommodation codes. I've even gone so far as to get community service hours. I just pulled a whole bunch of information here, okay? So, you know, before I start doing anything, I always like to grab my header row and make it bold, just what stands out. You know, if you're really OCD, you can make your columns a little bit wider so it fits the whole name, ID, you know, just little things like that to make it easier on your eyes and how it looks to you. Now, I want you to understand that with pivot tables, a pivot table is a snapshot of all of your data. It is a snapshot of what you are choosing to focus on from your data, okay? So we're going to get this huge spreadsheet that we have here, and it goes on. I mean, you see it right here. It goes on and on and on and on. It has so much information, maybe too much information. So now I want to cut it down and really focus on what I'm looking at. So I want to create a pivot table today looking at how many ESOL students I have for testing, because I know that when it comes time for testing, those students are going to have to be tested separately. They get extended time. I need to have dictionaries ready. Like, I just need a lot to prepare when it comes to students that are testing for ESOL. So when I'm ready to do my pivot table, I can go ahead and, let me delete this, I don't want to confuse you. Yeah, sorry, don't pay attention to that, I just did that. This was my master list here, okay? So I want to create a pivot table from this. So in order to do that, I am going to go ahead up here to insert. And I'm going to click insert. And when I do that, all the way over here to my left, I am going to go ahead and click pivot table. Okay, so then this little box comes out. Okay, what do you want to create for a pivot table, or where do you want to put it? So I'm going to select the table or range. I'm always going to have that clicked, that's selected by default, and it's going to be that master list or that sheet that you're using with your master data on it. So that's going to be selected. And then down here it's asking me, choose where you want the pivot table report to be placed. I'm always going to check new worksheet, because when I check that and I click OK, what's going to happen is that a new sheet is going to open up on the bottom, and that's going to be my pivot table. Okay, so I'm going to have new worksheet checked, and I'm going to click OK. Okay, so when I do that, I'm ready to do my pivot table. Okay, over here to my right-hand side, I'm going to have the pivot table fields, okay? And I'm going to choose where I want to put them each. For the purpose of today's meeting, just to get you used to pivot tables and what they can offer you, we're going to be focusing on columns, rows, and values, okay? Filters is a little bit of an extra step when you want to add more to look at through there. So we may be doing breakout sessions from these trainings, from these small trainings that we've done. And if once we do those breakout sessions that are smaller groups, we'll touch on filters. But for today, for the purpose of today's meeting, we're going to focus on columns, values, and rows. Okay? And if you notice up here, all of these fields are your headers. Okay? Your student ID, FLE ID, student full name, and so on and so forth. Everything that you had as a header there. Okay? So like I told you, I want to go ahead and focus on my ESOL students. I want to know from the beginning of the school year where my ESOL student, how many ESOL students I have per grade. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, columns, this is going to be in your columns. And then rows are going to be just like that, rows on the top, okay? So for the columns on this side, I'm going to want to go ahead and put the grades. So you wouldn't click this. What you would do is you wouldn't click the little box. You would click and drag it to where you want it to appear. So columns. See, it says, and you see the little image, right? It shows a column, yes, as going up and down like that. So you can have it there. You don't have to, you know, it's not going to be on the side. It's going to be here on the top. So for rows, now this is where I'm going to put my ESOL level. I want to know per grade level how many students I have in ESOL, but I want to know what ESOL level they are. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and choose ESOL level, and I'm going to put that in the rows. Okay, so now I have my different ESOL levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and blank, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And then my different grade levels, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then my grand total. Okay, now it's time to add information into this pivot table, to add actual value into this pivot table. That's where you're going to use this little box down here, values. You're going to want to choose something that is unique to each student. So you're not going to choose student name. You're not going to choose birth date. Why? Because you could have 200 Jose Perez's in your school who all have the same birth date of January 1st, 2000. Okay? So it's obviously something unique is student ID. Another unique thing is FLE ID, but as we've seen, there are times when a new student starts and they probably don't have a FLE ID. So I always just like to go with student ID, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and drag student ID down to values. Now when you do that, it's going to go ahead and by default choose sum of student ID. Look at these numbers. Those are not numbers of students. Those are crazy numbers. So we don't want sum of student ID. We want count. We want to know how many individual ESOL students there are per grade. So we're going to click the little down arrow, and we're going to click value field settings, and we're going to switch it to count. Okay. I'm going to click OK. Now, pay attention here. Look at these numbers. These numbers don't seem right. These numbers, I do not have 20,000, I don't have almost 21,000 students in my high school. So something is wrong with my master list that has caused my pivot table to give me these crazy numbers. Okay, so I'm going to click back on my master list, and I'm going to look really quick. Right off the bat, I can tell you from the beginning, look at this. I have duplicates on this list. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to remove these duplicates to create a pivot table based on this information after I've removed duplicates. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this. I don't want that sheet. That sheet is no good to me right now. I want to remove duplicates. Now, because of the purpose of this training and how I'm showing you how to have anticipatory data for your spring training, for your spring testing, I'm not going to focus on filtering any of this to see which students I'm removing. I'm bringing up something that was discussed at a previous training that I had, where we removed duplicates and we realized we removed students from like an Algebra 1 course, and we didn't want that. Right now, I can remove duplicates because at the end of the day, that student, no matter what course they're in, they're still going to have the same ESOL level. They're still going to have the same ESC exceptionality code, and so on and so forth. So if you were doing this for the purpose of finding out how many students you're going to have testing for Algebra 1, then you would create a filter for your data here, and you would choose Algebra 1 from your course title, and then from there you would get that data like as a separate sheet and create a pivot table from there. But right now I'm just doing my ESOL students, and then I'm going to do my ESC, so I can remove duplicates. It's okay. So to remove duplicates, you can click the little triangle in the top left-hand corner of your spreadsheet, of your worksheet, and you're going to click on data, and right over here is the remove duplicates button. Now, obviously these buttons don't really have names on them. If you hover over it, the name will appear as well as the function of each of these buttons, and that happens for each button. Click down here, this is data validation, and so on and so forth. So if you don't remember what the button looks like, just know that it's in data. It's under data tools, and then you would just hover to find out that that's remove duplicates. So we're going to go ahead and click remove duplicates. My data has headers. I wanted to remove duplicates based on student ID. So I want something that's unique to every single student. I'm going to do student ID. And I'm going to click OK. It's going to work its magic. It's going to remove all these duplicate fields, and it's going to leave me with 2,597 unique values. You know what? That sounds like the size of my high school. I'm going to click OK. Now we're ready to create the pivot table from here. Okay. So for the pivot table, I'm going to go back up here to insert. I'm going to click pivot table. This is selected, selecting the table or range. It's going to be this worksheet. I'm going to want it to be new worksheet, and I'm going to click OK. All right. So now I'm ready to start moving my stuff. You know what? I kind of didn't like it when I put grade over here. I didn't like the grade on the top. I think I want it on the side. So I'm just going to put grade under rows. And there, it comes out. And if you're doing this and you're like, I don't like it there, I want it in columns, just take it from here and drag it over to columns. Okay? So I'm going to put it back over here under rows. And where are my ESOL levels? ESOL level. Okay. And then values, again, I want something that's individual, that's unique per student. I'm going to do student ID. There goes that craziness of sum. I don't want the sum. I want count. So I'm going to click the down arrow, value field settings, and I'm going to click count of student ID. Click OK. Now those are the numbers that I should have. I have 2,597 students in my school. That's the grand total, all grades. All right, great. So let's just make this look a little prettier, like an actual table. And you could do this. You don't have to. It's up to you. You want to make it look like that, you can, whatever the case. All right, so now here, I know these are my level 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and then these students that fall under blank are actually going to be students who are not ESOL at all, who have never been ESOL at all. So I really don't need them on this pivot table. I don't need their information here because I'm trying to anticipate how many students I'm going to need to separate for testing, how many dictionaries I'm going to need, all of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. I do not want the blanks. Oh, no, you can't delete it. So what you do is you go over here to column labels and you deselect it. Okay? You deselect blank, and when you click that, it goes away. So you cannot delete a column or anything from a pivot table. Okay? When it has this little filter, what you have to go ahead and do is go ahead and filter it out. Okay? So 9th grade, level 1 ESOL students. I have 29. All right, thank you for letting me know. That's great. I know I have almost 30 kids who are ESOL level 1, but I want to find out exactly who those 9th grade students are. So when you double click this in the pivot table, a brand new sheet opens up, and it's a table. It is a very pretty table, just for you, with all your 9th grade students who are level 1. And then it already comes available up here to filter out however you may need. So Here, I have all my ninth grade ESOL level 1 students are a great. And it pulls from that master list. Even though I was only looking for ESOL level 1 students, it's getting all of that data from the master list that I have, from the master worksheet that I have, and it's putting it in here. So I'm finding out my ESOL level 1 students, okay, do any of them have an ESE exceptionality? I can click here and see, no, I don't. Section 504, do anybody? No, I don't. All of these are just level 1s. You know, I have their entry date. I have everything here that's on that original sheet, okay? You can save that. If you see that information you want to save to go ahead and work on your rosters, or, you know, print it out or send it to your ESOL coordinator, you would double click the sheet and you would just title it however you want. ESOL level 1. Okay, I could save it like that, and I could go adding on. So now I want to find out my 10th graders, ESOL level 1. Same thing, if you double click it, it's going to open up into a brand new sheet. Okay, and these are all my 10th grade ESOL level 1 students. Okay, and let's say I opened this information, I don't want it, it's, you know, it's not important to me right now. I could just click that same sheet, I would right click it and delete it and get rid of it. Okay, now here on this sheet, and this is going to be something that will be beneficial to you. This spring we were supposed to have started testing ESOL level 5 students who were still within the 2 years of being monitored after exiting the ESOL program. So here, let's say you were preparing for testing now in spring, we were back in school, or we were in school, and you wanted to find out how many students that would add on to kids who needed to test with extra time and with a dictionary, you know, with all those ESOL accommodations. So you could double click here for my 9th graders I want to find out. Okay, here are all my 9th grade ESOL level 5 students. You know what? On this sheet, let me see, did I get that data that I wanted? Yes. ESOL exit date. So when you click this, okay, I'm going to deselect all, and I'm going to do 2020, 2019, and 2018 for the last 2 years, students that were removed, that were exited within the last 2 years. I'm going to click OK. Bam. It's going to give me all this data now cut down to just those students that I selected. So now I see that these ESOL level 5 students, and obviously I would go through and confirm the date to make sure it still falls within the 2 years. But I could come here and see, okay, these are kids who may possibly have the maybe testing with those accommodations. So now I can anticipate extra personnel I'm going to need for that, and dictionaries and rooms, and it has all of that there for you. Okay, so the other benefit I can see from the pivot table, if you take this back with you to your schools, you can definitely train somebody like your ESOL coordinator in your school, or your ESE specialist. Like pivot tables, when you get from a big amount of data on file download and you just need a snapshot of that data, if they're not familiar with pivot tables and you come back to them with this, they may love you and hug you, and then you can send me a thank you card, because this just removes so much time for you to cut down and see these students. And now you, as the school assessment coordinator, can, you know, can already start working on making sure that the students are aware that they're going to be separated for testing, because maybe, you know, this student who exited September 6, 2019, what's their name? Mr. Purd. Maybe, you know, Mr. Purd has no idea that he's going to be able to test with those accommodations. You, as the school assessment coordinator, can plan maybe an assembly, or, you know, make sure that you let the developmental language arts teacher know, hey, please make sure that these students are aware. Well, no, they're not in developmental language arts anymore. Let the students know, however you want to let them know, that they are going to be testing with accommodations. Okay, and you have all of that here. Let's say, you know, you want to see all the information of the students again. You would click the filter. I'm going to just select all again. I want them all to appear. These are all my level 5s in grade 9. Okay, you don't want this sheet, you can delete it. It's going to permanently delete, yes. Okay, so this is how you can use it for the purpose of ESOL, right? So let's say right now I want to change this pivot sheet, and I don't want to look at my ESOL level, my ESOL students anymore. Now I want to look at my ESE exceptionalities and 504s, or any students that are listed with accommodation codes. That's what I want to see. So I'm going to get rid of the ESO level. I'm going to move it back up here. So to do that, all you would need to do is just grab it and throw it back up here. See? And now I just have my 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students. I find out how many students I have per grade, okay, which is also very useful too. But now here, I am going to go ahead and grab my ESC exceptionality students. And I'm going to put them here. Now these are all the different codes that are listed on IEPs, okay? All the different codes. These are my blanks. So these are students who are not, do not have an IEP, do not have any ESC exceptionality code. So I don't want that right now. That's not useful to me. I'm going to go ahead and click this, and I'm going to deselect it. Okay, here we go. Now, this, let me move it to the side so they're all together. Okay, same thing with this pivot table. When you click on it, it's going to give you the list of students who appear, for example, under the exceptionality code of K in 9th grade. If I click this, here are the 27 students that I have that fall under that category. Okay, so I'm good with that. I don't want anything there. All right, so, and again, you would look down here to already get in anticipation of, okay, in 9th grade, I have L here. L is gifted, and usually, I mean, I haven't really ever seen it, but, you know, it could be different. I really haven't ever seen that they are separated for testing. Maybe they could be. But for right now, I know that in my school, no, they're not separated for testing. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that because I want an idea of how many students are going to be separated for testing for smaller group and extended time, and, you know, any other accommodations that may pertain to them. Okay, so I know in 9th grade, I'm going to have 48, 10th grade 38, and so on and so forth. Maybe I don't want to look at the ESC exceptionality. Maybe I want to see accommodation codes. I want to already have an idea at the beginning of the year who's paper-based, who is going to have large print, who's going to have regular print. I'm going to move the ESC exceptionality away, and instead let me bring down accommodation codes. Okay. I'm going to get rid of the blank. Remember, I don't want the blank. Now, the good thing with doing accommodation codes is this is, well, let me show you when I click on it. So these are the different accommodation codes that appear in File Download Manager for the accommodations that these students would get. So for example, 9, and you see that that's predominantly where we have the most amount of kids. 9 are considered like quote unquote other accommodations. So for example, extended time would fall under 9. And there's other accommodations that would fall under 9. And it's very important that you work closely with your ESC specialist, or hopefully if you get trained on Excelify EMS, the program that's used for the ESC students, so that you can find out exactly what accommodations per student they have. But right now I know that the majority of my kids that are going to be testing with accommodations fall under 9 alone. Okay, when it's something else, for example, paper-based, and it's paper-based 9, that means the student has paper-based plus 9. Okay, so again, you would have to check what the 9 means. Okay, so I like using the accommodation codes as opposed to just ESC exceptionality or just 504, because when I click this, let me move to another grade. When I click this, now I can see that not all of these students here that get accommodations have an IEP. So they don't have an exceptionality code. Some of them have a 504. Okay, this particular student that I'm looking at right now has a 504, and guess what? They have accommodation codes. They have 9. So I feel like using accommodation codes is a better indicator of how many rooms you're going to need, how much personnel you're going to need, all of that. So as opposed to just putting ESC exceptionality or section 504, putting accommodation codes. And that will also filter out, for example, the L's. Look right here. This particular student that I just highlighted, Oh no, I'm sorry. Yes, no, I saw L over here. Okay, so this particular student falls under L for ESA exceptionality, which is gifted, but then they also have a 504. Whatever they may have a 504 with, like whatever might be indicated on the 504, they get accommodations with it, okay? So using accommodation codes could help you really anticipate that. And you can filter out here however you want to do. Maybe I just want to see only my 504 students. I'm going to take away the no, and I'm only going to open up 504. So I know that these students are all 504s. And look, I have 3 that are L that have 504s. I don't want to see my 504s. I want to see all of my students here. Okay, great. So with the pivot tables, it definitely is very, very helpful to give you that snapshot to use whenever you might need, whenever you just might need really quickly to see how many kids are going to be testing on this day that have accommodations, or how many test administrators am I going to need, proctors, how much paper-based materials should I anticipate for the spring testing? A lot, a little, like what should I look forward to in the spring? So that honestly is pretty much it for pivot tables, for what I wanted to do for the training for you all today. Are there any questions? Does anybody want me to go over anything on it?